Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com. I am Jason Floyd. As always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, how you doing, man, on this Wednesday Eve? I had to think about what day it is.
What's going on, brother? What's going on? Sorry about that. I'm trying to figure out if it's you or me. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us this week. I'm excited. I'm good. It's a Fight Island card. Crazy fights. Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers, hoping that nothing happens to any of these fights, but it does seem like there are more quality matchups. You have a ton more fights and some really, really interesting matchups.
Yeah, man, there is some fights on this card that I would tell you that I'm really interested in. Obviously, the main event is a fight that definitely interests me a lot. As you look down, I mean, obviously, we're going to break down these fights throughout this show. Is there a fight as you broke down tape, you're just like, man, this is going to be a banger?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm excited for the main event for sure. I really am. I think that it's an important matchup for both guys for the division going forward. I also am really interested in seeing my boy Aspinall. We know that I'm high on him. I'm high on Romanov as well in the UFC. I hope they never have to cross paths. But yeah, man, I'm excited for this card.
Yeah, we right when I started kind of looking at this fight card, I saw Tom Aspinall there. I was like, oh, Pete. And then so I always look at the prices first. I know you don't. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna mention this, Pete, yet. When you saw the price tag, were you like, crap?
Not so much, because I do love the matchup and I do think that it's warranted. I mean, the guy went out there and put on a show, and if you look at the stat sheet, he's absolutely killing it. It's a tailor-made matchup. He's a heavyweight against a guy that likes to strike, who has been knocked out in the past. I think it's a nice matchup for him. 9,400 is a little rich for a guy that really we've only seen 40 seconds of in the UFC. But I understand your hesitancy, but I really, really like him here.
Yeah, no, I get it, but yeah, there's some price tags that I thought were pretty interesting. But Pete, as we get ready to talk about all these fights, definitely got to mention the fact of your favorite fight of the week is actually the main event this week, the 8,000 versus 8,200, which is Omar Morales versus Corey Sandhagen. 8,000 for Marlon, 8,200 for Corey, $19 on FanDuel, 20 for Marlon, 21 for Corey. I guess part of my thought process with this, Pete, is, okay, what does Corey look like after what we saw happen to him last week, his last fight against Aljo? That's part of my question. And then also, if this fight makes it to the 4th and 5th round, can Marlon Morales have the gas tank to win this fight?
Yeah, I think, I'm really excited to see how Sandhagen responds to that loss to Aljamain Sterling. I mean, it's no secret leading up to that fight, I did favor Sandhagen in the matchup. I liked him in that matchup. I thought that if it kept, if the fight stayed standing, he could, really start to pick apart Aljo despite the volume. This situation is a little bit different. He will have the volume edge over Marlon Morales. But Marlon really fades as the fight goes on. And we've seen that he kind of like drops off a cliff as the fight reaches the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, or however long it goes. Sometimes even the 2nd, Jason. So Marlon is definitely a cardio liability, but within the first 2 rounds, he's extremely dangerous and can finish a fight wherever. You're talking about a guy that head kicked, and basically it was a head kick, but caught Aljamain Sterling with the knee and knocked him out. I mean, the guy was able to take out Rafael Assunção via submission. So the guy can do it all. And the thing with his knock, the knock on him is his cardio. And a guy coming from Team Elevation and Corey Sandhagen is really, really going to push that. High volume striker. I just want this fight to stay standing for my own pleasure. I really want to just watch, the both talented strikers go at it. I hate this price tag, obviously, but I kind of favor Sandhagen in hopes that it reaches beyond 3.
I don't see how you avoid this fight on DraftKings.
Now, I don't see why you would want to. I mean, this is a very pivotal matchup. So Sandhagen at 8,200, if he wins, he's probably, based on his volume, going to break the slate. Marlon Morales, if he wins, most likely it's be a stoppage, I would imagine. I don't really see him winning a decision against Sandhagen. So I really think that the price tag, makes him, a necessary commodity for your lineup.
We always talk. I'm more of a FanDuel guy. I don't, $19 and $21. I don't know if I would say it's a must roster fight on FanDuel. I mean, I think if I Moraes makes sense if he goes out there and gets a first round finish, especially if you put him in the captain spot. Sandhagen, though, I think does make some sense as well, but you got to pay $21 for Corey Sandhagen, and I just don't know if I love, and when we talk about the FanDuel pricing, they price up the main event, so there's never a cheap way to go to the main event. We saw last week you had to have Holly Holm in your lineup. If she was not in your lineup, you weren't you weren't cashed in first place.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that whenever there's a 5-round fight, unless you are completely feeling so confident in one side, you definitely need to split your ownership, because the likelihood is that, the winner of the 5-round bout will most likely be in the optimal lineup. I mean, more often than not, that's usually what happens, Jason. We went through a recent stretch where that was kind of not the case, but, more often than not, that's basically the best way to go about that. So I'm going to split my ownership here with Sandhagen and Moraes, obviously for the reasons I pointed out. The longer the fight goes, it favors Sandhagen's volume striking, but he does have an accomplished ground game as well. So don't sleep on his ground game just because Aljo choked him out. Marlon throws bombs and has great jiu-jitsu as well. So, perhaps the length and reach of Sandhagen will work in his favor for 5 rounds.
By the way, if you do have any questions on those fights, leave them right there in YouTube or also in our premium Slack account as well. We will get to those questions as we do go on throughout this fight card. A co-main event, we got Barboza and Amirkhani. Amirkhani, a notable underdog in this matchup, over a 2-1 betting underdog. What's your take on it?
God, oh, how the mighty have fallen, man. Barboza, he's 14-9 in the UFC, and I feel like we're kind of clinging on to our memory of Edson Barboza, of like his achievements in the division. I mean, he put a beating on Dan Hooker. He hit Terry Idom with a spinning hook kick, and that's probably the best highlight in all of UFC history. The guy has really struggled against grapplers, and that's just the way around. Like certain styles, it's not a good matchup for him. He really struggles against grapplers. If he cannot prevent the takedowns, he will either get controlled and dominated through ground and pound, or somebody will work towards a submission. Now, Barboza definitely has the experience and UFC experience in this situation. So 8,800 is based on his history. But this fight kind of reminds me of how Tyron Woodley was up against Gilbert Burns, where we're kind of like clinging on to old memories and like what he used to do. But recently, Jason, is there anything that really makes you have any confidence in Barboza? Like, there's nothing that should be making you like say, yeah, I want to roster him. I want to throw money on him. He's a -260 favorite. That is insane for how terrible he's been fighting. I mean, he's on a rough patch right here, man. And let's be honest, he should not lose a fight to Amirkhani, because Amirkhani is a one-trick pony. He will press you against the cage and go for relentless takedowns. But that is the style to beat Edson Barboza. So, I mean, you could do worse than Amirkhani at 7,400 as an underdog. He's definitely in play and a guy that I am circling.
Yeah, as people are mentioning about Barboza getting robbed in his last fight. Yeah, I thought he won that fight. Unfortunately, It didn't go his way. But those things happen. I will say this: the $13 price tag on Amirkhani on FanDuel is very intriguing. However, if Barboza can stop the takedowns, he could be an interesting play on FanDuel.
I think he's an interesting play regardless. And trust me, I'm not hating on Barboza. I'm stating facts. He has really dropped off. But he's fought better competition than Amirkhani, and you don't know how prepared somebody's going to be until they face a tough test. And this is Amirkhani's tough test. So will he pass the test or not? I think Dan Ige was more than content with standing and training with him for a little bit. Amirkhani's really going to throw a couple shots and dive for relentless takedowns, and try to zap that energy. And a very dangerous guy like Barboza does have, some cardio flaws similar to Marlon Moraes. But it's a fight I'm getting exposure to again. Like, I think main event and co-main event are very important for lineups this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the biggest fight of Amir Khani's career. There's no doubt about it, but you labeled it out right there. If Amir Khani is going to win this fight, it's him getting the fight to the ground. He's not going to win a stand-up fight.
Yeah, and I mean, who would think Barboza would lose a fight to Amir Khani? He should not. And, this experiment at 145, maybe it's not going to go as well as he had hoped. I mean, he did seem like he had one foot out the door at one time and was looking towards leaving the sport. But, I mean, the guy's a part of a great camp at American Top Team. I would imagine they have him well prepared for a one-trick pony in Amir Khani. But similar to the main event, split your exposure.
Yeah, I know that's something to pay attention there in terms of that one, and the 8,800 price tag on Barboza on DraftKings does kind of scare me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many, it doesn't give you confidence. 8,800, there are plenty of better options around there, but I mean, Barboza, if he wins, he most likely finishes Amir Khani.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Then we got a heavyweight matchup. Ben Rothwell taking on Marcin Tybura. 8,500 for Ben Rothwell. 7,700 for Marcin Tybura. $18 for Rothwell on FanDuel. $16 for Tybura.
Yeah, so Rothwell has a wealth of experience. You talk about a guy with 50 fights who doesn't really impress you that much, but his finishing ability early on in his career is insane. 89% throughout his 38 victories. That is crazy. That is such a high rate. So talk about heavyweight MMA. Rothwell is definitely the more dangerous guy. Marcin Tybura is 6-5 in the UFC. The similar body types. I would expect this to be mainly against the cage. A lot of clinching. I favor Rothwell in the matchup. I do think that, he has the better chance of getting a finish or has the better chance of dominating the fight. I mean, granted, we're talking about high-level mixed martial artists. So one slip up, one guy can take advantage of a situation. And Marcin Tybura does have, finishing ability as well, 68% finishing ability out of 19 victories. But for me, probably not my favorite fight to target, Jason. I don't know. I mean, Tybura's been knocked out quite a bit in his career. And, perhaps Rothwell can do it. But at 38 years old, has he lost a step at all to get a finish? I expect him to get the decision. But, a finish at 38 would be impressive.
But let's say Rothwell gets the decision. Does he pay off the $8,500 price tag?
They're both generally low output guys. A lot of output in the clinch, which sometimes is not counted as significant strikes. So, you're talking about stat corrections and not getting all the punches and significant strikes counted. So that could be a worry here in this matchup. So I'll have a little ownership for this one, but definitely so many fights. If you don't feel comfortable with a matchup, move on. There's so many other fights.
Are you saying DFS players are not the biggest Fight Metric fans?
Man, I think that Fight Metric is probably our worst enemy because I don't know how often Fight Metric has really been on our side. And we're like, oh my God. I feel like it's the opposite.
Outside of Chimaev, when he gets the fight to the ground, they seem to love him when he's on the ground.
Yeah, it's bias, man. Bias. I mean, Romanov absolutely, just murked his opponent and had a ton of points. But there are so many matchups where you're like, you're comparing websites and you're like, how do these stats not even add up?
No, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you on that. Of course, this is the MMA Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. Of course, be sure to hit that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo. We've always got a ton of content. Hit that notification bell so you know a new video is live on the channel. Also, all of our shows are available on the Awesemo Podcast Network. And I do want to let you know about our Awesemo Weekly Pass, where you can get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus Weekly Pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, and our premium Slack channel, and much more. Now, if you're only looking for MMA, then sign up for our weekly MMA package for only $8.95. Stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus today. Those are tools that Pete and I use every week, whether we're talking MMA, baseball, basketball, whatever it may be. Those are tools we are using to help cash in on our lineups, and you got to take advantage of those offers that we have over there at Awesemo.com, and we do have free premium content every day. Next up, we've got Marcus Perez, and I'm not even gonna try to butcher this guy's name. You know what? Tell me a little bit about him, man.
Marcus Perez against Dricus Du Plessis, and Du Plessis is a very, very highly touted prospect. Like, I think that this kid is the real deal. 14-2, coming out of South Africa. The guy is super, super talented. Comes in 14 victories, 100% finish rate. So this is some guy that you should look to circle. Marcus Perez is definitely not an easy matchup at all, and has fought some UFC competition, but overall 2-3 in the UFC. And we have seen him struggle a little bit against some grapplers or high volume strikers. And I think that Du Plessis in this matchup could really put him in some bad spots. I think Du Plessis, from everything that I've seen, the guy goes for it. I mean, he really does. He goes for guillotine chokes, a lot of TKO finishes, has been finished in the past as well because he's so reckless, but it's against top competition, against Soldic. And Soldic is a highly touted prospect as well on KSW. So I am really liking this guy, Du Plessis, at 8,400. As far as underdogs, Marcus Perez, really, outside of having UFC experience, he's a guy that is just kind of okay overall. I mean, he checks a lot of boxes in the okay department, but I think that Du Plessis should edge him out despite it being his UFC debut.
What's your thoughts on over on FanDuel? Du Plessis $17, Perez $16.
I think they're showing respect to the UFC veteran, and that kind of makes sense. You don't want to overprice a newcomer, but I feel like DraftKings kind of has it right. I think Du Plessis is the A side in this fight. Marcus Perez kind of has been somewhat disappointing. Let me pull up his record right here. I think about his last performance against Wellington Turman. He can go to the well with his submissions, getting an anaconda choke over Anthony Hernandez. But man, I just like this guy, Du Plessis. I really do. And maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but 8,400 for a finisher, 100% finish rate out of 14 victories, highly touted prospect. Sign me up. I'm sure he gets it done one way or another. 8,400 is not a crazy price tag.
We're not saying the L word, are we?
No. I mean, it's not like my boy Tom Aspinall or Romanov. But I do like him in this matchup.
So you're basically saying you're the fan club. You're the president of the Tom Aspinall fan club?
Yeah, I definitely am. Now, if Aspinall fought Romanov, I don't know who the heck I'm picking.
You'd be torn a little bit.
I might pick Aspinall. I like this guy.
Speaking of Aspinall, he's the next matchup we're going to talk about. 9,400 on DK and $21 on FanDuel.
It's my boy. I mean, what else do you want me to say? The guy's good. He's really good. Aspinall throws great boxing combinations. Comes from a good camp in Team Calbon, one of Darren Till's main training partners. Facing Alain Badeau. Badeau in here at 6,800. You're talking about heavyweight MMA, $8 over on FanDuel. One mistake, one shot that you thought you blocked and your hand wasn't high enough, you get caught and you're waking up to bright lights. So Badeau comes in 88% finish rate out of his 8 victories. Both of these guys are on the green side. So what I mean by that is they're relatively new to MMA and high-level competition because, they're like local legends, so to speak. And now they're starting to really get tested. I do think Tom Aspinall is the A side. I think he gets it done. It's just whether or not he pays off that 9,400 price tag, Jason. 9,400 for, sometimes heavyweights stare at each other a little bit because they're worried about getting hit with the big shot. You make your opponent respect your power a little bit, and you kind of put your foot on the brake a little bit, pump the brakes a little bit. But Aspinall, he should be a smash play here, buddy.
But, I mean, the thing is, when you are playing him, roster construction.
Yeah, so that is always the thing. It's like, say LeBron James is on the slate, right? Who the heck doesn't want to roster LeBron James? Like, but depending on how the rest of the slate is priced, sometimes fading that high end option who could give you mediocre output is the way to go. So I'll definitely have Aspinall exposure, but I'll definitely avoid it as well because you think about casuals just going in there and plugging in the highest priced guy. He must be good.
How does Aspinall get? How does he get caught? I guess is about the best way to put it. If for someone who maybe wants to go against the ownership and take a stab at his opponent.
Well, I would say that he has been submitted in the past. Alamba, though, is, he's a tall guy, big guy, comes from a good Muay Thai background, so I don't really see him going in there and trying to get him in a heel hook. I could see him just getting clipped with a shot in an exchange. But man, Aspinall, bro, I like him. I really do.
Next up, we'll go to one of my guys I've had a chance to talk to so frequently, probably over about the past 2 years, and that's Youssef Zalal, one of the most active fighters in the UFC in 2020. This has been a rough year for a lot of MMA fighters, but not Youssef Zalal. This is a guy that's cashed in on the opportunities, stepping up on short notice back in February, and he's made every advantage of it here. And but in another favorite spot here, 8,600 on DK. What's your take?
So I'm a big fan of Youssef Zalal. I think that he's so young and he comes from a great camp. He has good striking, good wrestling too. And when you think about Youssef Zalal, you don't really think about how talented he is grappling wise, but he is. Now, there are some questionable moments in some fights, like especially against Peter Barrett, where he does some things, and I'm like, you know, not the highest IQ, not like elite level IQ. Still shows that he's a young guy. He's 24. I mean, when I was in my early 20s, I was making plenty of mistakes. And, I think in the future, you're going to see Zalal be a top 5, top 10 guy. I really do, because he's in the game getting UFC experience. Now, going up against Topuria is a finisher, man. And Topuria is a threat on the mat. He really is. And Youssef Zalal at times almost looked like he kind of got flustered at moments when he would get pressured against Peter Barrett. And we know Peter Barrett and Youssef Zalal, if he stood on the outside, in at moments he did, he picked them apart from the outside, but showed a willingness to get the fight to the mat to somewhat avoid damage. Against a guy in Ilia Topuria who throws bombs, he's not just a grappler, but his A game is submissions. And, perhaps this guy can take advantage of a ill-advised shot or something. So Topuria at 7,600, he's not a terrible play, but he is making his UFC debut against a guy who is 3-0 in the UFC, who has excellent distance management, excellent footwork. He's coached well. Zalal, if he stays on the outside, picks this guy apart. Topuria at 7,600, 100% finish rate. I'm circling him as I always say I circle 2 or 3, maybe 4 7K options that I sprinkle in and mix and match, and Topuria will definitely be one of them.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about Youssef Zalal is that so his initial plan was to go down to 35. And, he got into the UFC and basically, and his line that he'll tell you, he goes, I'm a skinny Moroccan kid. That's his line he says all the time. But because of kind of how everything's gone, the last time I talked to him, he said he has no plans to go down to 35 anymore. He's going to make a run here at 45. And one of the reasons that he said that is he goes, look, I can't take a short notice fight at 35. He goes, it's just not possible. I have to, if I'm taking short notice fights, it's got to be at 45. And him and the team there at Factory X and also the strength and conditioning people that he's working with, they're actually working on bulking him up a little bit. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if Zalal, my only concern with Zalal is at 8,600, yes, we've seen the volume. We've seen the movement out of him. But I want to finish. I'm paying at 8,600.
Yeah, you start, once you get north of 8,000, about north of 8,500, you start needing to get 85 points and up in order to pay off your salary. And, it all is dependent on matchups. And in a matchup like this, where a guy is most likely going to look to try to submit you or pressure you with big bombs, sometimes, the output just isn't there. Zalal, 8,600, if he gets it done, I just don't know if he really pays off the price tag exactly like you're saying. But I still like him. I think that he's a prospect in the division. I really do.
Next up, we got KB Ballard taking on Tom Breeze. KB Ballard is actually someone I'm familiar with coming out of that Canadian regional scene. He was actually supposed to be on the Contender Series, but that did not happen. So now he's in this spot. Tom Breeze, 9,100. Ballard, 7,100.
Talk about a big step up in competition, Jason. You go from the Contender Series, hopeful, like you're supposed to get on the Contender Series, and then try to compete towards awarding getting the contract. And now, well, guess what? We need a last minute replacement for Tom Breeze, who in the UFC is 4-2. Now, Tom Breeze has all the skills in the world, and his detriment is what lies behind, within his ears, and it's his mental game. And sometimes he's really struggled with anxiety and confidence and everything. But I did listen to some interviews, and it does sound like he's really, done some self-reflection, a lot of research, between meditation and positive self-talk, trying to really just get his mind right so that he can reach his potential, because the skills are there. Tom Breeze, 9,100. He's priced appropriately for a guy facing somebody who's stepping up on last minute notice. It's just whether or not he can really conquer those mental demons. And the only person that really knows that is him. And, we can lay it all out there, but, he has been caught in the past, but out of his 11 victories, he does have a 91% finish rate. I do think Tom Breeze gets it done. I think it's a nice spot for him. Ballard is somebody to look at going forward. This is just not a good matchup for him, in my opinion. Debut fight, you're asking a lot.
Yeah, it's KB's a guy that I've talked to on several occasions, but yeah, it's a tough spot, and and obviously you bring up some great points about some of the things that we've seen with Tom Breeze in the past. Next up, we got heavyweights Daukaus and Nascimento. Nascimento, a pricey fighter here at 9,200, 7,000 for Daukaus.
Yeah, Nascimento at 9,200, besides the Contender Series fight, doesn't, and now his one fight in the UFC, he was relatively unknown, but the guy does have a strong ground game coming from American Top Team. And anybody that's coming from American Top Team, that they're well coached. They have a wealth of big guys down there for jiu-jitsu. They got good strikers. They have every style down there to imitate. And Chris Daukaus going up against Parker Porter in his last fight, it was a good spot to take advantage of, heavyweight MMA, of guys slinging leather, who's the more technical, and it was Daukaus in that situation. Daukaus has been finished in the past, despite having a good overall game. Decent striker, can get the finish. Definitely is a better striker than he is on the ground. But the Daukaus brothers are schooled on the ground, and they have skills. It's just if you have a big heavyweight on you who's used to training with the likes of some dominant grapplers at American Top Team, that's a very tough task. So 9,200, I think, is warranted for Nascimento. I think that he can get it done via the grappling route, and could, I wish he was cheaper. He could, put up a high score. Daukaus is a dart throw based on him slinging leather, trying to get the KO. I just really don't see it happening in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I'll ask you is, and I'll have to go in the Fantasy Cruncher really to kind of put this together, but can you team up Nascimento and Aspinall together?
I don't see. The thing is, right, Daukaus is really tough, and I just don't know if I see a finish coming from Nascimento. I do think Aspinall goes out there and puts some, Budo away, since it's going to be a striking match. It's so tough to say, but I mean, pairing two 9K options is always difficult unless you really, really like some low options.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question mark is some of these lower options. Do you want to go to them? And next up, maybe you think Joaquin Buckley can catch Impa. I'm not saying I believe in that. Impa 8,900, Joaquin Buckley 7,300, Impa $19 on FanDuel, and $12 for Buckley.
So Impa Kasanganay coming from the Contender Series, and then now having a nice performance against Maki Pitolo. He's so green. It's crazy. Kasanganay is 8-0. We have like 4 fighters, Jason, that are 4 or 5 fighters that are 8-0 on this card. It's pretty odd. But Kasanganay, 8-0, only 25% finish rate out of the 8 fights. So that's really not the best. Buckley, though, he's a talented guy who throws bombs. And coming off of his last fight against Kevin Holland, he's just knocked out not too long ago. Let me check the date on it. I feel like it's like 2 months ago. It's in August. Okay, so it feels so much closer than 2 months ago. Okay. Pretty quick turnaround, Jason. Like pretty quick turnaround, when you got brutally KO'd. Kasanganay doesn't have many finishes at 25% finish rate in his 8 fights, but facing a guy who was just KO'd recently, sometimes you hit that off switch and it happens a little bit easier this time. So I do favor Kasanganay in here. Buckley, somebody you can look at because he throws bombs. He's talented. He has some big wins on Bellator, and then took that fight against Kevin Holland on short notice. This would be a big win if he comes in here and upsets Kasanganay.
I mean, look, against Holland, he brought it, man. There was no fear. He was coming straight forward, and and we'll see how that goes with him. But I'm super high on Impa. I think this guy's got, he's obviously still a developing fighter, and to see kind of how he does progress forward in his career, he's definitely somebody I'm really interested in this UFC division here. Then we got Ali versus Kelly. Kelly was a guy that we talked about when he made his UFC debut on short notice. He came in there and just really just ran out of time.
Yeah, man, what a crazy matchup. It's so weird because we're seeing so many of the same fighters fighting. And it's like, 1 week that we're breaking down their fight against somebody, and then, a couple weeks go by and now we're matching A and B together. It's just so interesting. You got Kelly here against Al-Casey, and Kelly's the striker of the matchup and Al-Casey's the grappler. And that's the best way to put it. Kelly throws volume strikes with excellent footwork. He actually got outstruck in his previous fight. It was getting hurt a lot with shots to the body. Now, I do think that was matchup related, and I don't think that Al-Casey can really replicate that. I mean, Kai Kamaka was really lighting him up, hitting him to the body and making Kelly shell up and just teeing off. I do think that Kelly is a little overpriced, though, Jason. $8,700 for a guy that is only 6-2 overall. Like, he's 6-2 overall, doesn't have the best record. Seems like he does have some hype and buzz around him because of maybe what he does in the training room or who he knows or whatever. But realistically, both of these guys are 0-1 in the UFC. Al-Casey's going to do everything he can to get the fight to the mat. He has shown that when he gets the fight to the mat, he's pretty dangerous. But Tony Kelly, if you go back and you look at, his early career pre-UFC, split decision loss against Kevin Aguilar in Legacy. That's a tough fight. That is a tough fight. And Al-Casey really hasn't been tested to the same level. Has more finishes and does have, it's interesting. 7,500 for Al-Casey is interesting. Minus 230 for Kelly. A little wide. But, the volume striking could definitely help him out here. Who you like in the matchup?
I'm liking Kelly in the matchup. I don't love the pricing, though.
Yeah.
When I saw the $8,700 price tag, I was like, oh, man, that is a price tag that I don't know if I want to pay.
Maybe he goes out there, right? And maybe he feels better and he goes out there and puts on a show against a guy that really can't match the striking. Like Kai Kamaka really surprised me in that fight because when Kelly would throw a combination and light him up, I mean, Kelly was like on his way to potentially winning that fight and like coming back at times. Kai Kamaka would answer and put him in danger. I don't think Al-Casey can really do the same on the feet. I really don't. I think he will need to be shooting for takedowns left and right in order to keep this competitive.
It was a tale of two fights in that one, and just Kelly just, turned it on just a little too late in that one. Next up, we got your boy Jacasey taking on Omar Morales. Jacasey 7,900, Omar Morales 8,300. I kind of feel like this is another fight that you got to kind of look at as, I don't know if I want to say must roster, but something you got to be considering.
It's interesting. It's an interesting matchup. I mean, Giga Chikadze, if you don't know who he is, we've broken him down like 3 times now. I feel like in quarantine, it's crazy. The guy's been pretty active. Comes in 7,900 against Omar Morales, who's 8,300. Chikadze, a glory kickboxer, and really known for the Giga kick, which is a question mark kick. So super fancy kicks, a lot of dexterity with his legs. He's able to do a lot. Not the best boxing in the world. Usually likes to stay on the outside and kick the heck out of his opponents and light them up from the outside and kind of outpoint them. Comes in 70% finish rate. Omar Morales has made the drop down to 145 pounds over time. I feel like he's going to be a massive man in this matchup, despite coming in the shorter of the two. I just look at him, right? And maybe it's the videos that I see or something, the camera angles, I don't know. But when I look at him, Jason, I'm like, this guy makes 45. It's just some fighters, when you look at them, it's so hard to really picture them at that weight class. You'd have to see him in person. But Morales looks huge. He has the boxing advantage in this matchup. He can kick with the best of them. Really good kickboxing. So minus getting caught with something crazy or something weird from Giga Chikadze, I do think Morales is big enough to kind of walk down Giga Chikadze, hit him with some powerful punches, and if it gets ugly, he can take down Giga Chikadze. The guy has the grappling advantage in this fight. Absolutely. Like, he really does. So despite my love for Giga Chikadze in previous matchups, I'm going Morales.
Wow, I was not expecting that one. I mean, I know Chikadze's your boy, so we'll see how that plays out. Of course, if you do want to see the odds for these fights, just got to go to awesemo.com, right top of the page. Click on Odds Shopper. It'll get you to the odds, not just for MMA, but for all sports that we have up there. Also, be sure to follow Awesemo on Facebook and IG, as we are providing free Awesemo Plus player projections for NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and so much more on Instagram at Awesemo_com. And, of course, just search for Awesemo on Facebook. You'll see all the stuff that we got there. Definitely want to check that out. 2 more fights to break down here before we get into listener questions. We got a female matchup of Tracy Cortez. Of course, Cortez, 9,000. What's your take?
Man, pretty hefty price tag, Jason. Cortez, 9,000. She's 1-0 in UFC. I mean, but she has fought some decent competition. If you look at it, I mean, her performance on the Contender Series, I mean, she went out there and she beat Maria Agapova, who we were all pretty high on, and then she went out there and put up a stinker. But, Vanessa Mello victory, Maria Agapova victory. Cortez likes to take the fight to the ground, as she has good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, good boxing. In this matchup, I don't think that it's an easy one. Egger here at 7,200. A judo practitioner where if you get close to her, she will dump you on your head, and work towards a finish. I mean, Cortez comes in 7-1, only 29% finish rate. Not the best, more of a grinder, not a finisher. Egger comes in 5-1, 80% finish rate. So she likes to really toss you, work towards a submission, aggressive striking to a clinch. And if Cortez doesn't stay on the outside, I can really see Egger reverse in a lot of positions. And you're talking about women's MMA, 135 pounds, how, variant these divisions are sometimes with results. I think you could do worse than Egger at 7,200. I will definitely circle her as a GPP play, as somebody that I'm looking towards that will go out there and push the pace and try to get me a first round or second round W. Cortez's style of punch into a clinch and then working towards takedowns could work right into the strength of Egger. So it's an interesting matchup. I'm really going to have a lot of exposure here.
So are you saying armbar from guard?
Yeah, gosh. That seems like how they've been going, right? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know how I see this fight going other than, if Cortez closes the distance, she could wind up getting tossed.
And our opening fight of the night has our second biggest favorite on the card, Tybura at 9,300, taking on Silva at 6,900.
Yeah, Ulanbekov is a prospect, man. Comes in minus 400 favor over Silva. You're talking about a guy who trains with Khabib Nurmagomedov. I believe it's his cousin, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. I mean, it's such a powerful camp. And, you know, you're talking about 125-pound fighters here. The action is going to be crazy. The pace is going to be crazy. So you don't always want to avoid lighter fights. And it's because what they lack in finishing ability, they make up for with activity. And that, increase of activity means usually higher volume, more scrambles, more takedowns. 9,300 for a debuting fighter is pretty interesting. I'll definitely have some exposure here. Silva has skills. He has striking skills. He has grappling skills. But I think he's limited for how long he can dominate in those areas. I just think long run Ulanbekov runs away with this fight the longer it goes. And, I just think that he's a prospect for a reason.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. Of course, start lining up those questions right now about these fights in YouTube. Also, I'll be checking our premium Slack account here momentarily, but do want to hit up Joe, who came over in the super chat. He says, as he goes, always looking forward to. He goes, my famous question, who are your locks of the week? And any merchandise coming soon, Pete?
Hey, what's up, buddy? Yeah, no update on the merchandise. As far as locks, I mean, I like Aspinall. We all know that. I don't think I gotta, reiterate that. I really like him there. Outside of him, I mean, there's exposure a little bit everywhere. I mean, there's not too many fighters that I'm crossing off. I guess he'd probably be my lock for a W. I just don't know about 9,400 paying off the price tag.
Yeah, I mean, it's an expensive price. There's a couple of fighters, that you look throughout this card and you just say, man, they're expensive. So start lining up those questions. We'll be here for another 10-ish minutes or so answering your question. Dragonfly says this card is pay-per-view quality compared to last week's card. Yeah. I'm off on Sunday, so I can actually watch all this fight card on Saturday night, as opposed to last Saturday night when midway through the co-main event I said, peace.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed the fights last week, but this fight card, they're bringing it. They really are. I'm excited. I'm really excited for it, and you can see that the talent overseas has been waiting, and now Dana and the matchmakers are finally able to put together some stack cards.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, one of the things look, I was watching the Fight Island documentary that's on ESPN Plus now. If you've not catched that out, I would highly recommend going there. Let's see here. All right, Samuel with his usual questions, so we'll just fire them off right here. Top 2 underdogs, top 2 heavy favorites, and upset of the night.
Okay, well, underdogs my 2 favorite underdogs that I'm looking towards for DFS would probably be Egger is one of them. Man, the underdogs are ugly. I probably say, despite the notoriety of Barboza, I will be plugging in Amir Khani in a decent amount of lineups.
Samuel says, contrarian move, pivot fights from the main and co-main event.
I love the main event and co-main event. I'll be having exposure to both sides of them. But I think the Zalal Topuria fight's interesting because of how aggressive Topuria is. Breeze and Ballard. Nascimento and Dawkins as well is interesting.
I think what makes fading Moraes Sandhagen is the price point on DK. It's so appealing on DK for both guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tough to have mid-range 8,000 plays not come through for you with 2 extra rounds if it goes the distance. I probably won't be fading the main event too often.
Yeah, I don't think it will be either. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. He says, what are top fights that we are likely to be targeting or excited about on DraftKings? Thanks, fellas. Obviously, I think the main event, Joaquin Morales, excuse me, I should say. That is one that interests me. And then the other one, probably Impa and Buckley.
Yeah, that fight interests me, but not really for DFS. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe Buckley comes in here with a full camp and just wipes out the hype of Kasanganai. I mean, that's totally possible. I like Barboza Amirkhani. That's a fight I'm really interested in. The fight I'm most interested in is the main event, obviously. I want to see Aspinall fight again. I want to see more than 40 seconds, I hope. I just want to see, like, maybe I'm a little off on him. Maybe he's not as good as I think. Mm-hmm. But from everything that I've seen, the eye test, I really like him. Strikers Delight, Morales Chikaze, I'm still not really excited about that fight for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I think that they could be both hesitant, both low output strikers. Breeze and Ballard is interesting because the story behind Breeze.
Yeah, I mean, someone asked me if I was taking Ballard for the upset. Will I have a lineup with Ballard in it? Yes, I will. But that's just because I play multiple lineups. And at 7,100, he allows me to get some other fighters in there.
What would you say out of 10 times? How many times you win that fight?
2.
Yeah. That's about what I'm saying too. It's a big step up of competition from Contender Series to highly ranked opponent, and a guy, Tom Breeze, who was regarded as a guy that had a lot of promise. But if Breeze goes in there and falls apart, I mean, Ballard could literally shatter his confidence early.
Someone asked if I'm taking the first fight of the night. That's probably a big no.
Really? No. Well, because he's priced up. If he wasn't 9,300, I think you'd be taking a.
If he was
8,600 and under, you'd be taking him.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it and say I would rather take Nascimento at $100 less and pair him with Aspinall.
Yeah. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you kind of take a wait and see approach a lot. And, I feel like you're a lot safer than, say, me when it comes to, like, certain things. Like, I'll take a shot on a guy that I haven't really seen, but that has a ton of promise.
And look, and when you're talking about someone making a UFC debut, you don't know what to expect.
Yeah. I would say that Russians do it different, though. Like, the guys that come out of Khabib's camp, they just seem ready for anything. Like, don't they seem like just mentally tougher than a lot of fighters coming over?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's 2 weeks away from Khabib Gaethje. That's going to be a fun one to break down.
Oh, man, I don't want to get my hopes up because I don't want somebody to fall apart with an injury or something happen. It's just like when it's the week of, I'll get excited about it.
Yeah, no, you've been around this sport way too long, so you know. Yeah. Joe says, if Aspinall gets another finish in this fight, do you look for a top 15 opponent for him next? If so, who do you have in mind? Maybe the winner of Hardy versus Green.
I think that they know what they got in Aspinall. Aspinall he's really good, and from everything that he beats Darren Till up daily, and granted, totally different weight classes, but it doesn't matter. Darren Till is so talented. I think that with a prospect like that in the heavyweight division, they need to make sure that they're not ruining their prospects like some other promotions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sam says, yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm guessing this is related to my text message to you earlier today.
Yes.
Bro, why? Why is Melvin Manhoff being fed to Corey Anderson?
I don't know.
He is going to get grapple-effed the whole fight.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a perfect matchup for him. Dude,
when I saw it come across my timeline, then I got the email press release on it. I was just like, why? Like, Corey Anderson should not be fighting Melvin Manhoff. Melvin Manhoff should not be fighting Corey Anderson. Give me guys who, you tell me Melvin Manhoff's fighting, give me someone who's going to stand and trade with him.
I know. If you're a part of Melvin's team, like the Joe Schilling fight was perfect. Like that's the type of fights you need.
I talked to Joe today, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, so he's fighting next Thursday against Curtis Millender. Really good, really fun fight.
That's a fun fight.
Should be a banger of a fight. And I thought one of the most interesting things that he had said. So with work with Daniel Rodriguez, he's been working with Eddie Bravo for like the last couple months.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, his big thing is about how he's really working on his grappling. Yeah, so
I actually fun story. I'll tell you more off air. But I trained with Joe Schilling on the ground and American Top Team. I don't know how long he was down there for, but I was training with him for a little bit.
Yeah. Samuel goes, who's your guy's favorite sleeper? I'd probably say Americani.
That doesn't make you feel comfortable though.
No,
right?
no. I mean, like I'm okay. From a DraftKings salary, I'm saying 7,500 and under. That's a sleeper to me.
Yeah. I think Tybura is interesting. I really do. 7,600 for a guy who has so much hype. Zalal is going to be penciled in a lot of people's lineups. Tybura comes in here, can capitalize on one mistake on the ground. And like I mentioned before, Egger, 7,200 women's MMA. Makes sense.
Joe says if Khabib or Gaethje doesn't make it to the fight, would Tony Ferguson be a top option to replace? Nope, it is Michael Chandler. Chandler will be on Fight Island as a backup just in case anything happens.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Coker had a great line. He says, if my guy leaves my organization, he's thrown right into a title mixture, says a lot about my lightweight division.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah. We'll leave on this one. Joe says, I hate to see this. I'm all Corey Anderson guy. I hope he comes out strong, but he needs to leave his chin down. He really could seriously get KO'd badly. Yeah.
He could.
Yeah.
He could. I mean, like, he really could.
Yeah. That's a fight that Corey wrestle. Do not try to become a striker.
Yeah, I mean, know your role. No, I mean, don't try to prove anything. You already proved it against Johnny Walker that you can knock people out. Just go out there and just dominate. And,
of course, Live Before Lock on Saturday, I want to say we'll be on at 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time, I want to say. Fights start at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, so we'll lead you up to the fight. So you got to join us on Saturday, Live Before Lock. Pete, of course, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
The one thing I'd like to mention is that I think this week, more than any other week, since there's so many fights, paying attention to the weigh-ins and seeing how, let's say, Barboza at 45 looks again. I mean, just because he had a good cut the last time doesn't mean anything. He could have a bad cut this time. You want to take advantage of some bad weight cuts or what we read on the weigh-in. So check us out on Saturday. If we helped you guys out tonight, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We will be back and get those questions ready for Saturday. I can't wait to make some money.
And, of course, if you want to re-listen to the show on your way to work tomorrow, download the podcast on the Awesemo Podcast Network. But that is going to do it for this edition of the MMA Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com.